Hello, my internet friends. Are you unemployed? Are you a sad sack that doesn't have a job? So am I. But did you guys know that I actually did have a job at some point? I know, scary, right? Um, I was a busser. I used to be a busser, at least, and I like all my jobs were food industry. I always did food industry. I tried doing other jobs, but like nothing would take me. Only food, which was a burden and a blessing because you get free or half off food, or you get like shit all. But it's whatever. I worked for like a year and a half as a busser for a bar and grill, and that was horrendous. I was there, and it was me and like two other friends that I had, and we were both hired on the spot. I have eggnog with me, by the way, so if you hear me like sipping shit, just ignore me. It smells like a cat. Anyway, um, so I worked there for a while, and the amount of like stories I have of that is horrendous. Like I did doubles, which for job terms basically means working both night and day, aka I have no life, so I must earn money somehow. It's like monetizing your loneliness, if anything. It's it's really just like a get rich quick scheme for lonely people. First, get a job. Second, like take as many hours as possible. And I had there was this one time where I had this rag that was under one of the tables, and it was full of vomit. It was like white vomit. You can smell it. You can definitely hear it when it's like splashing with the fucking rag, but it was it was like the most disgusting thing I've ever like wiped in my life. I didn't have to physically touch it. I just put it into the dustpan, and I just said, I'm done with you. I'm not dealing with you." And I left that. I left it at that. And after that happened, I was just feeling nauseous like the rest of that night because I'd usually work night shifts because morning shifts you don't get that much. For me, when I worked the morning shifts, it was from 12 to 4. But if you worked the night shifts, it was from 4 to like 11 for the most part. Sometimes 12 depending on the day. So for me, it was very very beneficial, especially with the pay that I had, which wasn't the best, but it was plus tips, so you kind of it was like tip share, which is basically when servers. I love mansplaining. It's when servers take a bit of their tips and they put it into like hosts, food runners, bussers, and it's an own individual thing. So like if you work with a fellow busser, then you're not going to make as much as you would make if it was just you. And it's not in your control on whether you can work by yourself or not. You're just kind of having to suck up with whatever you got, unless there is a no call no show, or like they just call out entirely and you're just fucked. But St. Patrick's Day was a really really lovely paycheck because it was a bar and grill, as I said earlier. So imagine a bar and grill on St. Patrick's Day when they food colored the alcohol green. Oh my god, that was like hell on earth, but it was okay. And I busted by myself, and I got like $50 from just tips alone, from both the day before St. Patrick's Day and the day after. Oh my god, that was so beautiful. And I just remember these like I always managed to get through every busser that worked there previously before me. Like there was never a consistent busser other than me because nobody wants to do the Grammy stuff, the touch the food, the Coca-Cola pouring on your hand. Like that shit would disgust. I mean, it disgusted me, but most of it was just the sticky feeling that you get afterwards, in which not a lot of people enjoyed. Not a lot of people enjoyed stacking the cups and then, feeling the embarrassment when you stack 10 cups and then, shocker, the whole fucking thing decides to fall over and you just hear the roars loud as shatter as if an obese guy just jumped into a pool and you just kind of have to watch it happen as it splashes all over you. And you kind of have to clean up your own mess when it comes to shit like that. But that's whatever. And so I had this, when I first in training, the only other buster that was there was this special ed guy. His name was, we're just going to call him Steve. We love Steve. We love Steve because Steve does the most minimalist work. But trust me, he will resort the entire, Star Wars, the whole entire Star Wars monologue to you, as if he wrote the damn script. And you just have to admire that to some degree. I mean, to be honest, he kind of walks past tables as if it was nothing. And so you're just kind of like, oh, okay, cool. More for me to do. And so the beauty of it was was this one time when it was just him working, and he was he role plays in his head when he's doing other shit, and sometimes he mouths, you hear what he's saying, he voice acts it, and it's what should be in his head, but it's for the whole world to listen to. And this was back when one of the World Wars, not the World Wars, yes, World War II, and Steve is just shouting at it. But he was role playing as a soldier pilot in the middle of a restaurant, and it was pretty busy during the time too. And he was saying what was it? Something along the lines of just die, you scum. And he was saying a specific countries. It was just disturbing. It was horrible. It was the worst thing to ever come out of your mouth in the middle of a restaurant with family. And he's saying this shit so loudly too. And I'm just amazed about the creativity that it was his mind. And especially when he was telling me, so sometimes the bar side grabs their plates and puts it down for us to get. 6 months into me working, 6 months by the way, he goes up to me and he's like, it is a busser's responsibility to take out the bar plates when they're in this section. I'm here for a little bit over half a year, and then he's explaining this to me as if this is just new information that I just have to process, and that was a horrendous experience. And I think he just stopped showing up after a while. There was this one server that I was friends with, and she saw him at a Walmart, and he looked so much happier when no one was on his ass about his work. And he was just doing his thing, dude. He was just chilling the entire time, and you gotta respect him for that. He might have been a hard ass. He might have just been terrible to work with, but hey, he looked happy. So you gotta give him that credit. And when I first worked there was this little manager. He was pretty short, and I believe he thought I was in Steve's category because he was very aggressive with the people, right? He was very up everybody's ass I'm a manager, you'd listen to what I say, yada yada yada. He was just a menace to be around. But I believe he thought I was slow, so he would go up to me and he would be like, hey man, look, you're doing an amazing job, I'm so proud of you. And he was usually an asshole to me a while ago, but it was I think it clicked to him that I was sped, apparently, clicked to him. And he was like, hey, if you need anybody, go talk to me, dude. And I was like, and I was a bit of a dick back. I kind of just used that to my advantage. I was just kind of like, okay. and I just kind of went with it, dude. I was just like, yep, guess I'm the sped here. I just, let's go, man. I mean, yeah, I got something going on, but like, let me make it as if it was 10 times worse than it actually is. And then I started getting scheduled less over like the summer. I was only working like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which was like terrible if you think about it. I mean, look, the only good side about it was Sunday mornings, which means, that's when people usually get out of church. 12 to 4, that's around the time people would be getting out of church and they'd be going to restaurants. It's usually older white people and, parties of 6, parties of 7. And that was, that was lovely. And so there's this dilemma that goes onto your head that like you're blessed if you are scheduled on a Sunday morning because that restaurant got so busy at that time because we live that place was in like between 2 churches. So it was like money mayhem. You'd get crazy cash if you did it like that. But mornings you don't really get a lot of servers, unlike nights. Like if you look like over in the pantry area, there's this little sheet that tells you like who's working AM and then here's PM. AM being 1, 2 or 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then PM being that shit. And so you had that, and then you also had the difference in what the schedule was. So like, or not the schedule, but like the amount of people that were working in that schedule. So you had like two bartenders, 1 busser, 2 hosts maybe. I mean sometimes it's literally just 1, but there's always like 2 typically. 3 food runners, and then here's the list of the servers. Probably like maybe 5 at worst. Then you have the PM. The PM is when it looks silly. You had 3 bartenders, 2 bussers, 3 hosts, 3 or 4 food runners, and then this fucking bucket of servers. Like, it was really long. It was actually like horrendous to look at. And sometimes when you're able to pull doubles and they schedule you for those doubles because you would go on the website and then you'd see yourself at both 12 and 4. And you usually get a break. You don't get breaks in between shifts, but you do get breaks in like if you're doing a double, here's like between that double, here's your hour to 30-minute long break. There's one time where it was 2 hours, but that was like because it was raining and business is usually shit when it's raining. But, that hardly ever comes. And so I remember the guy, I'm going back on a different conversation. That's my fault. The guy that thought I was sped, right? He would kind of disappear for like 2-3 hours at a time and then come back, and he'd be so fucking like lost out of his mind. Like I've literally been seeing him like grab the ladder, like the 2-step ladder, and just sit on it. Like he didn't have dwarfism. He was just really short. He was like he had to look up at me to see me, and he was like in his mid-30s, and I just turned 18, right? And so he had to tug onto my shirt. He had to do all this kind of like dominating shit to kind of like, prove that, his size doesn't matter in whatever department that may mean. And he was just odd. He liked cutting servers really early, especially if they were women. If they were women, he would treat you like a queen. You're like his pretty princess. If you were a guy though, if you had a cock, oh my God, you better be like working the trenches. He will work you till you're exhausted, my friend. He will treat you like you are nothing but an asset. But if you are a woman, he'll brush the side of your hair. He'll make sure you're doing good. Do you need to be cut early? It was like 2 p.m. and she was like she was supposed to pull a double, but he was like, do you want to have your break early? And he didn't mean that in that teasing, not endearing, but like a teasing kind of joking way. He was saying that in like that Discord moderator type shit. It was really weird, and I had to watch that, and I didn't say anything because I was a new hire, right? When he was acting like that, I thought, and everybody didn't say anything. It was just a casual thing, Who knew he just kind of, he was a weirdo. He was an oddball. I think he was just a floating manager. He was like a front of house manager. And also, sorry, mansplaining again. Front of house is like, where the tables are, and back of house is the kitchen, all that shit. Just. And so he would go to the back, the very back where the dumpster was, and kind of vanish off for a few hours. Found out he was just sleeping in his car mid-shift, while paid on the hour, by the way. And he would come back, and that ended up like messing with him. So they sent him into a different location, and then they just fired him. They sent him into the same restaurant, but it was in a different location to see how he would react, how he would act in a different environment, because the company didn't really know if it was a him thing or if it was an us thing. Spoiler alert, it was a him thing, and so they just fired him. And so I never heard anything from him. He just kind of vanished. He was a little oddball. I didn't mind him, but that was just because he thought I was retarded. And so he just kind of went on a limb about it. And so I ended up leaving around August of this year because I needed to focus on other stuff going on in my life, and I found in quotations a better opportunity that was just kind of meh. But I wasn't buster. I didn't bust there. I did other food stuff, mostly dishwashing. But that's not what I'm getting into. This isn't a dishwashing ramble. This is a busser ramble because I love bussing. Bussing is one of those things in which, like, it should be common sense to you not to eat the food off of the plates that you're bussing, but sometimes some people don't really, like, that doesn't really get through everybody's head properly, and so it just keeps going. They just keep eating, and that's happened before. People have gotten fired for shit like that. Like, I can't count on one hand, actually. It wasn't that often, but that was just because, that's either common sense or you just came out of the loony bin. But I did bus, and I was in training for this other, I was in training for this other restaurant that I worked at about, not too long ago until I just left it. But, so they did things differently. So typically how busing works, and I know this is typically, there's a wagon, right? And you push the wagon has, like, the plates, the drinks, the trash, whatever, what's needed, right? And then the stuff you need to wipe everything down, whatever you see, the people holding the wagons, yeah, those are the busters. And over at 54th, we didn't have the wagons. We had a spray bottle in our rag and, the imagination in our head. And so how I would do things is a lot of the stuff that you were supposed to have as, like, the disposal area, you're just supposed to pick up and go into the pantry and dispose of there for the dishwasher, right? That was at the place that I was at. I don't know if I said the name of it. I wasn't paying attention. But what happened was, in this place, it was more traditional busing, but I wasn't used to traditional busing. I was very, very used to the soloing of it by just holding on to everything like it was a circus trick and then just kind of going along with it. And so what happened was I was there for a little while, but I had this other person, and she was a busser too. And her whole thing is that she would, like, talk to every single guest like it was like she was the server, right? So, and she was an older lady. I don't fault her at all. It's just more so just kind of like it is what it is. It was annoying because I was doing, like, multiple tables, and then she comes back from talking to the guests and tells me to speed it up, despite the fact that, like, she was literally talking to the guests while I was doing the work for both of us. So that was a little much, but it was whatever. I personally didn't care that much. I mean, I lied. Yeah, I cared a bit. It kind of irritated me after a while, but it was whatever. I didn't last too long in there either way. That was just because, you could take the risky busser You could take the boy out of the risky buster, but you can't take the risky buster out of the boy. And I saw things differently, and it just wasn't, on par of what they were wanting. So I was like, okay, that's cool, but I'm not gonna accommodate to this because I want to live. So I want to live the way that I wanted to live. I wanted to do things a specific way, and I was told not to because my brain was always like, okay, I should focus on getting the guests capable of being sat first before I end up worrying about anything else. Because here's how it works. Here's how the best dilemma to work as a busser for me. I don't know. Maybe this doesn't work for everybody, and I'm just have the flawed mindset because the place that I worked at didn't do things the traditional way. But for me, it was very easy to how do I word it? The tables come first before anything else because the more you get the tables bust, the faster that happens. The faster people will be sat. The faster people will be sat. The faster you get money, and then the process continues in which they leave, you bust, they get sat. More money comes in because there's more capability of people being sat. That was how my brain went about it because that's the best way to go about it in my head. But I don't really know. Maybe I'm delusional. Maybe I'm the one at fault. I don't know. All I'm really worrying about is the fact that I can get my money and then come out a richer man than I was like a fucking 2 hours ago, right? And just apparently the idea that busing faster means more money because people get sat faster, apparently that doesn't come across in everybody's mind properly. Because I think, to me, that's like the most sensible way of thinking about busing, right? The, you get more tips out of it because there's less space of empty tables in which people have to be in a line to wait because, you got to clean this table. It has to look spotless, blah, 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 blah. If you make sure it's spotless first before anything else, then that's where the money can start rolling in. And I'm repeating myself, I know. But it just makes things a lot easier to comprehend, And I just think that's how it should always go. I think a lot of busing businesses should work like that. And maybe it does. I don't know. I only worked 2 busing jobs. But this one did it the more old-fashioned way that I would see when I was younger about how busing would work. The whole wagon and shit. So, and I was just thinking, maybe that's what it is. And the place that I was at wasn't the greatest. Or maybe it's the other way around. And the place that I just left wasn't getting, had a few loose screws. And here I am now. So the moral of the story is if you ever do food business, don't do busing unless you actually hate yourself or you go to a place where you don't have to use a wagon and your busing capability resorts to that of, using your hands and using your balance skills. Because that's what's really going to save you, right? The more you do your balancing skills, the more you're able to stack the glass cups. And here's another piece of advice. The best thing to do it is by getting from least to most full glasses. And if you can't, it's the best thing to do is to stack them on top of each other and only do that by 4 cups. Don't do it by any other cups because then you're going to risk it tilting, and when it tilts, it's going to shatter and it's going to be your fault and you're going to cost the company money. But if you do it by 3 or 4, then you're fine. But don't, and another thing, don't stack glasses on top of plates because you have no control over what happens to that glass. And especially when food runners or servers or people going all over the place, you have to start parkouring the entire thing, you're bound to break something. So it's best to do plates on one hand, cups on another. If there's no cups, plate. If there's no plate, cup. Does that make sense? So then you'll be able to hold on to 6 in total if you use 3 on both hands. There was one time in which I stacked 10 cups together, but that's just because I'm stupid. That's just because I thought I was the shit. I ended up being the shit because I was managing to walk it, but that was just because the pantry was 2 inches away from me when I was having 10 glasses on top of each other. And what I did is I held on to the bottom one and I held on to as high as I could go, and then kind of push one left, push one right. It stays in the middle. Keep going. Don't fucking stop, because when you stop, when you're stopping and you're kind of letting it balance on its own, it's gonna fucking tilt and it's gonna be the worst experience of your life. and then you're just gonna like everybody's gonna look at you, and then you don't want that to happen, right? You don't want to be looked at like, like those little horror shows when you embarrass yourself in those dreams, and then here you are now having to face with the consequence of it. Just don't do that. It's best to just take it in as you can, and just be like, hey, I can only handle this amount, and this is what, and so I'm only going to do this amount. The best thing to do, if any manager goes to you and it's like, you need to be faster, you need to be this, you need to be that, here's my advice: walk faster. Don't fucking run, don't sprint, but just speed walk a little, because it's not speeding in terms of grabbing everything at once, because you're going to overwhelm yourself and it's just not going to be great unless you have experience. And in that case, it's kind of iffy because some people can handle things more than others. But if you're just starting and there's a buster job that you're doing and you're catching yourself to be slow, physically move. Don't start overloading yourself with too much shit at once, because it's all gonna come crashing down at you, and you're already overwhelmed as is, and you really don't need extra shit on your plate. Just inhale, exhale, and just keep going forward, because that's the best thing. The best thing when it comes to busing is always move forward. If you start walking backwards, you're gonna fuck it up for everybody. So best thing to do, just move forward and don't let anything really get in your way, because if you do that, then not only are you risking your job, but you're also going to risk the company money, and then that's just not going to look good for you in a more like resume future wise, because then you're not going to be able to use them as reference for another job whenever you're like, okay, I don't want to bus anymore, maybe I like my life a little more than I did when I applied here. So that's my advice, that's my story, that's my life. Merry Christmas. I will see you guys probably tomorrow. Be safe. And my last message of the day is, if you do a busing job and you see a wagon, I suggest you grab your coat and just go.